Hi, this is Robert Clinkybeard and David Anderson with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. We're going to take 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders and business owners and provide you some value that you can take back to your business, your family, and your personal life and transform your life. We hope you really enjoy this. Cheers, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Robert Clinkybeard with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. I'm here with David Anderson and our distinguished guest, Ben Collinsworth. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, Ben? Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. Well, good to see you, as always. So I'm just going to kick off, first of all, and ask you about your career change from going from a tremendous football player for Texas A&M and now suddenly you're a tech guru in the landscape industry. That's a little bit of a change there.
Yeah, those are all kind of big stretches to me. But so when I grew up, like a lot of the people in the industry, I started at 13 years old mowing grass down the street from my parents' house to make a couple bucks and kept doing that relatively successfully through high school, made some decent money. Then when I went to school, one of the counselors for the football team said, "Hey, what are you good at?" And the first thing I thought of was I'm a landscaper, and she said, "Oh, okay, well, we have, landscape architecture and horticulture and agronomy and other stuff here that you might want to try out as a freshman." So I said, okay. So I tried it and I fell in love with it. And so got a degree in it, didn't realize that it was a profession until I started studying it in college. And then got a really nice job in Austin with a private company in the 90s that got sold to Land Care, that then became True Green. So in a very short 2.5 year period after graduating college, I got to see a private company that was doing it really well. It was in the $30 million range to transition to Land Care and transition to True Green, all within a short period of time. I realized quickly that that model was not for me as an employee, at least, and started my business in 2001, and then had a 17-year run before I sold it to Yellowstone in January of last year. So that kind of is a condensed version. And now I'm still with Yellowstone. I'm helping them grow throughout the country. And I do have some technical plays that I'm still trying to do within the industries. I'm investing in a few software companies that are up and coming and I think doing great things in our industry and trade now. And that seems to be, maybe because of where I'm at in Austin, seems to be where I gravitate most towards. I love the industry and I love technology, and I try to do anything I can to help advance those things for the industry as an investor. And still work at Yellowstone. So they still keep me pretty busy.
Yeah, I'm sure. David?
Great story. So I have a question for you. When you started your own company in 2001, you worked it for 17 years and were fortunate enough to have an exit to another company. What are the lessons that you look back on that you learned, things you wish you would have done different early on to prepare your company for an eventual exit to another company? Could you have done it quicker? Should you have waited longer? But what are the things that, that you learned during that journey?
Yeah, I mean, ideally it would have been intentional, up front. Like a lot of guys, I got out and started the business because I saw an opportunity to fill a gap that I thought was in the market. There was a lot of construction work that True Green didn't want to do when they did the roll up with a lot of these companies. They wanted the recurring maintenance and not the construction. So I started this company really to fill the needs of the clients that I felt were left behind. Now, there was nothing other than, hey, look, these clients want me to do work. One of the guys played football at A&M, and he said, hey, I'll give you all my work if you start tomorrow. And I was like, that's good enough. And so I started the next day, and that was not anything else than opportunistic. It wasn't, there was no intention about it. I had no idea where it was going to go or what I was going to do with it. I just know that I was 20, at that point, 24 years old. I didn't have kids. I just recently gotten married, and I didn't have a lot to lose, quite frankly, taking the risk. I'm very happy that I did that, obviously, but looking back, would I be advising somebody else, I would say, hey, try to be intentional. What's the intent of your business? What do you want to do with it? Is it, and you don't know all the answers of these things, but at least have an idea of what you want the end to look like, right? Whether it's giving it out to your kids, whether it's selling it to somebody else like I did, or whether it's just being a lifestyle company that feeds your need. Just be intentional with what you need. I find that people make good decisions when they know what their plan will be in the future, and that'll change over time. But if I asked my 24-year-old self, hey, what's your intention? It would have been to drive a nice truck. That was my intention at the time. I wanted to pay for my gas and write off some stuff for taxes. And I wanted to pay myself enough that I had a salary. So I think when I started out, I paid myself $32,000 a year, and I was happy with that, and then it changed obviously over time. Yeah. But the business was a construction company for the first 8 or 9 years, mostly construction work, did a little bit of maintenance. And then I found what all those problems created in the 07, 08 timeframe here and in other parts of the country where it went really, really bad for a lot of construction guys. Had a lot of clients going bankrupt, had a lot of places that were not able to pay me that were used to paying me. And that created a real challenge. I had just had twins at the time. I had clients that were not able to pay their bills, and I was starting to really, really feel the pinch cash flow wise. And thank God I made it through that. A partner at the time and I decided to split up. I chose the maintenance route. He chose the construction route. I gave him all that construction work and had to rebuild the company with maintenance revenue. And I'm very, very, very fortunate that we made it through that year or two time frame where we could do that. I wish I had started out with better recurring revenue. The cyclical nature of that construction work, it takes a different type of stomach to make it through a lot of those things. Also, it could take some deep pockets. So, to me, you need to have some pretty deep pockets in order to succeed in those hard times. And maintenance allows you to grow at a very regular rate and be able to not outgrow your cash flow, because you can watch what's coming in and stay profitable, maintain margins, and budget for it a whole lot easier. So to me, in any of the industries that I've looked at, recurring cash flow is so much easier of a business to manage and also much more valuable to sell. And so,
absolutely.
I wish I would have known more of that going into it and been more intentional with growing the maintenance side, not just because I had to, but because it was just a better business to be in.
So, Robert, I'll ask one more and then turn it back over to you. So you kind of touched on this, and it goes to your intentionality that you talked about. Landscaping is a pretty broad category if you think about it. Talk a little bit about, deciding your niche or the maintenance and, where to stay. And like a lot of us entrepreneurs, we get sidetracked easy and run off looking at the next other thing to do. So, how did you, what are the lessons you learned from finding that correct niche to be in and build a business around it?
Yeah. So for me, a lot of what I chose to do really harkens back to that first 2.5 years out of college. I saw it done well, right? The local company I worked for, I was very fortunate. It was very well run by a lot of really highly talented people. And they showed me a model at that point, how to be successful in the maintenance business. When I transitioned from construction, which is really my passion, having a design background in college, I really enjoyed the process of building a project from scratch. Like, that fills my soul a lot more, but it doesn't pay the bills. So I realized when I switched that I didn't know as much as I wanted to about the maintenance business. So I got involved with other guys back at that same year. So I had a guy named Jim Paluch I worked with. Eventually that became peer groups, and eventually that became Bruce Wilson and Robert and other people that helped to really fill the gaps of where my knowledge ended. And I think, it was a blessing that I was able to reach out at that point and say, hey, I know I don't know a lot, but I know that this is a business that I want to be in, and I could learn from people who had already been there. So for me, it was really like, all right, lessons learned. I don't like bankruptcy. I don't like people that can't pay their bills. I don't like sites that, owe me money for long periods of time. And in maintenance, you're never more than 30, 60 days back on something you did to mow the grass, and you can shut it off. So it just started making a lot of sense, that business model. I still knew landscape. I didn't know as much about mowing specifically, but I did it, from 13 to 18 before I went to college. And so I kept just harkening back on that experience and then reaching out to people when I was in an area that I didn't know as much as I wish I did. So got to utilize other people's experience all around the country, and then built an awesome network of people to ask questions as I went along. And that was that's the only thing that made me successful in those 2-year periods and not go bankrupt like a lot of people did back then. Yep. It was just every day waking up and trying to figure out a way to how to answer the next question, how to make payroll every Friday. I had a great resource of people to pull from to help me.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of questions along that, Ben. I mean, even in maintenance, there are so many segments within that. And when you look at here, we are in September of 2020, been a pretty challenging 7-8 months. Talk to me about the importance of just spreading that. Just that. I suppose that fear or that segment or business to make sure you're not necessarily all in one segment.
Yes. So we had a nice split. When I was, I really built a company, not totally intentionally, not really knowing it, but I really built a company that mirrored the company I came from. They were, probably heavy 50% HOA, rest of it was professional office and retail. And they would tell me all the time, don't get into multifamily, don't do this, don't do that. There's some of the parts of the industry that they found were more challenging. And so I just kind of followed that. I really just followed all right, I want a mix of HOA, retail, and professional office. And that's what we built, So we were about 25% professional office and 25% retail and 50% HOA. And that allowed for us to have a really good business mix. Now, I'm fortunate because, again, I chose a 17-year period in Austin, which was really good. There was, Austin's been great nationally. And then we picked up a branch in Houston. We picked up a branch in South Texas. We did some work in San Antonio and Dallas. So I'm really fortunate that we picked a great time to be in just about any business in Texas and have a really, really nice run of opportunity. And as long as we didn't outgrow our ability to service it, which we tried to do that a few times, as long as we didn't outgrow the ability to service it, we were successful. So that's pretty much where it came from, Robert. I found that when I went to market, that most of the industry in private equity feels the same way. They're not super bullish on multifamily for whatever reason. They don't really like construction. They discount it as a value. They really like HOA, professional office, or retail because those clients typically pay the bills. Maybe not a pandemic, but a lot of those clients normally pay on a regular recurring basis. They're just better clients. And we found that to be the case. They also do a lot of reinvestment in their properties over time and capital improvements. So, I just mirrored what I learned from the 90s, which is, go after the best clients that continue to pay their bills and continue to be worth working with.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other thing you touched upon was the importance of having people around you that support, whether it be mentors, whether it be peer groups. I think, David and I both experienced people where they almost feel as though they're on that island. So suddenly something major comes along, like a pandemic or some other issue, and they feel as though they're just suffering by themselves. So talk to us about, who do you seek out? How do you start that process? And what do you look for in a good partnership with another peer group or mentor?
Yeah, so I feel like our industry is doing a pretty good job now of making that more accessible, right? Back then, when the peer groups first started, back in that time frame, I remember there's only 2 or 3 in the country. I don't know what the other guys would do, but I was fortunate enough to be in some of the first ones that came out that I had heard of. And now they're all over the place. I think they market to them a lot. I think if you go in there and just put landscape industry peer group in Google, you'll probably find a lot of them. I know there's a bunch of good guys that facilitate those, even for smaller guys, doing it through Zoom and making it economically able to reach a lot of people that are smaller contractors. I did 2 things. I think nationally it helps to work in a non-competitive market with people all across the country, but also for the same period of time, I've been in the Alternative Board, which is a tab group here locally, which same thing, it just does non-competing guys in different industries here locally that you can work with. And I loved doing both. And I think it was equally beneficial to do both because they made me approach my business as a business, not a landscaper here locally. And they would, they would question me on my metrics and question me on my cash flow and question me on my ability to grow in ways that I just never really thought about as an entrepreneur. Instead, I would always think about how's the best way to provide service for my people, how's the best way to, employ as many as I can. I would think like a landscaper a lot of times, and all these guys locally would force me to think like an entrepreneur if they were investing in my company. And so I would highly recommend that if you're looking for a resource to search local and nationally, that if you can get on and find some people that are in your business that are competitive, that can help you through it, do it. The best thing we can do, I think, is admit our inability to know everything and do everything. And the more you find and surround yourself with people who are able to fill those gaps, the more successful you're going to be. And obviously the more knowledgeable you're going to be going forward. So I'm real fortunate. I had a lot of insecurities when I was first starting out, and I plugged into them instead of running away from them. I was willing to go for whatever reason and just say, hey, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. And what would you do here? And what would you do here? I never had a problem asking questions and feeling like it came across as something I should know. And I think that's a trap a lot of people fall into, that you think you should know all these things or you're going to feel stupid when you go and ask those questions. And, as well as I do, every entrepreneur has that fear, I think, when they first start out, that I'm supposed to be smarter. I'm supposed to know everything. I'm supposed to just be able to find it and do it. And that's the biggest harm to your future success, is not being able to get past that quicker. Because you've got to be able to up front say, I don't know, and I'm going to find out. And I've got to build a resource and network of people that can help me find those things. And then you have a chance, Still doesn't mean you're going to be successful, but at least you got a chance if you're willing to admit the things you don't know. And I think it makes you a better employer too, because it makes you build a team and surround yourself with people who fill your gaps and are better than you at so many things. And then you let them run and you trust them to do it because you realize they're smarter and better than you anyway. And, you can trust them to do those things. And the more we do that, the more the company scales. And I find that all across the country when we look at other companies. I get to work with Yellowstone and acquisition stuff across the country. And, you can walk in a company in 5 or 10 minutes and know the quality, the strength of that team just based on the way they talk, the way they interact with each other, and a lot of that's built around, I think, the entrepreneur's ability to say, I'm going to build a strong team that can outperform me in probably a lot of areas because I'm comfortable doing it, and then, you've got a good thing to build on.
Yep, absolutely. It's the team you build around you that makes you success. So a change in direction. Landscaping is, fair to say, a competitive marketplace. How have you differentiated yourself to ensure that in a competitive marketplace, you're able to, keep your customers? I mean, reoccurring revenue is great, but if that reoccurring is coming from different clients all the time, it gets expensive to get those new ones. So talk us a little bit about the competitive nature of the space and how you've differentiated yourself.
Yeah, I would answer that in two ways. First and foremost is the people that we hire. So I think because it's such a relational business that if you don't hire people that want to work with other people, then you're probably not going to be able to scale very well in a relational business. And so for me, having people that people wanted to work with was always key one, right? Go out there and find people. One, you're knowledgeable, but two, people just like you and they want to work with you. Because I find that, clients are a whole lot more willing to accept challenges when they come up if they like the person they work with. So that's first and foremost. And then second would be speed of information. So the part about being a tech guy in Austin is that you get really challenged by other people in this space as to how you do business. How quickly can you access information? How quickly did you go to the cloud? How easy is it for your people to work from their cars and not have to come back and do mundane things back in the office? They really, really, really challenged me on my thought process, even before it became more the norm. I mean, 10 years ago, they would say, what are you doing with this? And showing me that and showing me cloud services and other stuff, which I just don't know that as the industry we're very exposed to at the time. And I think giving quick access to information to my people, allowing them to spend more time in the field and less time in the office gave us a competitive advantage. Sending clients information faster than other people and being able to have the clients trust us to manage that information made us, I think, a little bit better than some other people that maybe had more reputation in the market and more time in the market. They knew we were younger and they knew that I was relatively young when I started out. And so you had to go out there and be a little bit quicker, faster, better than your wisdom, I'd say at the time, which that's the only way I could compete with the people who were better landscapers than me or had 10 or 15 or 20 years experience in the market than me, was to just try to do something better to differentiate us with the client. So those two things, hiring good people that people wanted to work with, and then giving them access to information, being very open book about everything and letting them help us get us to where we wanted to go, I think conveys to the client when they talk to your employees, and the client really can trust you to do that.
And talk to me more about what the industry as a whole needs to do to improve in technology. Because when I talk to people in the industry, as usual complaints, they're talking about labor, they're just talking about maybe lack of training, but you almost seem to have things figured out.
Well, listen, I would never say that we had everything figured out. I do think that the labor situation, especially, and other stuff, it doesn't matter if you've got a great place to work and all these other things, you're going to have challenges. Even Yellowstone, with as great as they are and all the resources they have, and they treat people like gold. I think they pay their people extraordinarily well. They put in great bonus systems for production. It's still a challenge, right? Because there's still guys who are just going to take 50 cents more to go work somewhere else, even if it's a short period of time, and it's going to create an influx of labor issues for every company. Especially in Texas, where we have a lot of opportunity and development and other stuff, guys can make substantial amounts of money just deciding to be a framer or plumber or other stuff. So we have run into a lot of those challenges. But the most thing that we can do as employers, I think, is using technology to our advantage to say, hey, this will make your job easier, quicker, faster, better, right? So ideally in the field, when the guys are doing mobile time check-in, they're getting all these notes, or all have smartphones that are provided by the company. They have great equipment, great trucks. They have great health insurance that we can provide for people. We have every little box you can check to make somebody want to work somewhere. That's what we would try to do. We would try to be the place where people would want to go to work. And then at least then maybe you're employing 80% on a regular basis, 20% maybe are changing out over time. That bottom 20% seems to always want to churn. But for the most part, a majority of your people are staying stable. And I think that's the best that you can do. Use technology that makes their jobs better, quicker, easier, faster, and makes them have more of a place where they want to come to work. Provide them with everything that you can as an employer and you can afford. Price that into your job margins to make sure that you're creating a safe and beneficial workspace for people. And then I think you'll get a chance to at least employ the best around your market. If you're not doing those things, you're always going to be chasing who's paying more money instead of, investing in the people that work around you. And I picked Yellowstone specifically because they offer a lot of those same things even better than I could in the resources for people in production and management. And I think that's key. That's key if you're going to have a chance in employing, whether it was me employing hundreds of people in Texas or it's Yellowstone employing 4,500. If you're not creating, places where people want to come to work, you're going to constantly be having that problem. And so we keep trying to do that and redefining that over and over and over.
Cool. And final question, just to wrap things up. You talked about your involvement with some other technology ventures or platforms. What do you see coming down the pipeline? What's exciting out there?
Yeah, a lot of really cool stuff. So I was fortunate to, when the platform softwares were coming out, to try a lot of them and get to know the pros and cons of them. And then we chose to work with Aspire. And I think a lot of the big platforms are doing a really good job in creating a lot of really cool widgets for the industry. But there's always holes that are created through these big platforms. And that's what I really like that I see coming. There's a lot of initiatives where people are trying to take the holes that exist, and whether it's in irrigation or specifically in tree work or landscape maintenance or inspections or other stuff, there's a lot of little bitty holes that can be filled by these other companies that are coming out right now to automate a lot of our processes. And like anybody, we want to do more with less. And I think that it will allow us to spend even more time being landscapers and less time being computer people. And that's what I'm excited about. And so what I try to invest in is all these little widgets that'll help make people's life better, that'll interface and hopefully interact with a lot of these platform companies. So if you're a smaller contractor, only have $2 million of work, and there's going to be a great resource for you. If you're a 5, 6, 10, there's going to be a great stepping system of software able to help you meet your needs at different sizes of your companies. And I feel like that's still void right now in our industry that doesn't exist for a lot of people. So if you're paying attention, just make sure you're watching the industry trade stuff. If you're going to or watching the upcoming event for landscapes, just stay plugged in, because there's so many good things that are coming up in the next year or so that probably a little bit prolonged because of all the recent stuff this year, but they're really coming along quickly that it's going to allow you to make your job a little bit easier. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about all the little bitty people are starting to invest money in our space in software. Instead of just having a few, it's quite a bit. There's a lot of money coming in. So
awesome. How do people get in touch with you? Do you want to learn a little bit more about you, your company, technology?
Sure. Yeah. They can easily find me on LinkedIn, Ben Collinsworth. I'm bcollinsworth@icloud.com. If they want to email me personally, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to be a resource for anything anybody needs.
Cool. Well, thank you, Ben, for your time today. Any closing words, David?
No, thanks, Ben. It's always interesting to learn and see that regardless of what industry we're in, we all kind of share the same challenges and opportunities. We need technology to improve our businesses. People are key to all of our success. So it was great to hear all from you. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you, again. Thank you. Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today and you got some great takeaways for your business or your personal life. This is Robert Clinkybeard along with David Anderson, and we'd love to get you and your friends to join us in our future journey. So please subscribe through our website, commerciallandscapers.com, or through the various podcast channels out there. But anyway, hopefully you have an awesome day. Cheers.